Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Sunday morning Science of Mind class right here at CSLDallas. My name is Tracy Brown. I am so delighted to start a new chapter today. Yes. So, after months in chapter 8, at least, well, no, I think it's been 2 months it took us to get through chapter 8. We are beginning chapter 9, which is on page 149. And if by chance this is your first time being with us on Sunday morning Science of Mind class, let me just tell you what happens. We spend about 20 minutes going through a few paragraphs in the Science of Mind textbook, and then we open it up for conversation, your questions, your insights, how it applies to you, what doesn't make sense, what does make sense, but we spend about 20 or 25 minutes interacting with your questions and your comments. Today we are beginning a new chapter. And so I'm going to dive in. I'm going to share a little bit about this chapter, and then we'll go into some discussion. So at the beginning of every chapter in the textbook, Ernest Holmes does something that I have come to really appreciate. At the top of the new chapter page, he presents all the subsections within the chapter. So you kind of get a roadmap of where the chapter is headed. So the subsections in this chapter 9 on prayer are the difference between prayer and treatment, the laws governing prayer, the idea that prayer is essential to happiness, and prayer is its own answer. And today we'll dive into prayer and treatment. One of the questions most frequently asked about the science of mind is this, quote, "Are prayers and treatments identical?" End quote. The answer to this question is both yes and no.
Definitive.
Very definitive, exactly. It is the answer I give yes and no. And Ernest Holmes starts this chapter telling us that prayers and treatments are both yes and no, identical. And then in this section, he goes on to explain why. Quoting, second paragraph, "If when one prays, the prayer is a recognition of Spirit's omniscience, omnipotence, and omnipresence, and a realization of humanity's unity with Spirit, then this prayer is a spiritual treatment." Next paragraph. If, on the other hand, one is holding to the viewpoint that God is some far-off being whom you would approach with doubt in thought, wondering if by some good luck he may be able to placate God or persuade God of the wisdom of the request, then there is little similarity between prayer and treatment. Nothing could bring greater discouragement than to labor under the delusion that God is a being of moods who might answer some prayers and not others. It would be difficult to believe in a God who cares more for one person than another. There can be no God who is kindly disposed one day and cruel the next. There can be no God who creates us with tendencies and impulses we can scarcely comprehend, and then eternally punish us if we make mistakes. God is a universal presence, an impersonal observer, a divine and impartial giver, forever pouring itself into what it creates. This is the first section in the chapter of prayer. Now, just connecting the dots a little bit, the previous chapter was all about the power of thought and how we use thought to create things, experiences, or ways of being in the world. And so mental treatment is the application of thought toward a specific outcome. And so in building that bridge, this is how we start the chapter on prayer. All prayer is not treatment, even though treatment is always a form of prayer. Repeating, all prayer is not spiritual mind treatment, although all spiritual mind treatment is a form of prayer. All, one more time, but I'm going to say it in the other order. Spiritual mind treatment is a form of affirmative prayer. It's a form of prayer that we refer to as affirmative prayer. So if you have the umbrella called prayer, spiritual mind treatment is one spoke on that umbrella, because we know from other traditions there are many other ways to pray. So if you're holding an umbrella and it has the spokes, spiritual mind treatment is always going to be a prayer. It's a form of prayer. It is affirmative prayer. However, when you think about it, spiritual mind treatment, if it's one spoke here, then there are all these other different kinds of prayers which are not spiritual mind treatment. Right? So that's why he says the answer is both yes and no. Are they identical? I probably would answer that question and say, no, they're not identical. Because they're not, but spiritual mind treatment is a form of prayer. So people will say, and it is true, if I'm doing a spiritual mind treatment, I am doing a prayer. Just a very specific type of prayer. Now, I'm hoping that answers one question that some people have in their minds, because it is a very common question that comes up in classes even a lot, and it comes up often when we within CSL or within teachers of science of mind will say, let's pray, and mean let's do a spiritual mind treatment. Right, so sometimes that's confusing for people. You didn't say treatment, you said prayer. Are they the same thing? Now you know the answer to that. Are they the same thing? You're so smart. Yes?
No. That Sigmund Freud quotation right there with the borderline between illusion and delusion.
Oh, so
Dr. Holmes, psychologist, is playing tricks on our mind here.
So within the room, you're hearing the question, and we're laughing a little bit about Freud saying there's this between illusion and delusion. And right there, they sometimes look like they're the same thing, right? The illusion is a delusion, but they're really got some different definitions. So that we might go there in the conversation as well. But I'm going to jump right in. There's a lot in this chapter, but I think we can right now stop and just talk about this initial idea about what is treatment and any questions you have about treatment in general, which is not here, and what's the difference between prayer and mental treatment. And then if there's not a lot of conversation around that, then we'll go on to start the next section. So Ryan Brown, good morning. Tell us how we can play together.
Yes, good morning to you too, Dr. Tracy Brown, and hello to everybody here in the room. I love it. And welcome to everybody joining us online on Zoom and all over the globe via Facebook Live. We love that you're in community with us today. And as Dr. Tracy was explaining, we want to hear from you. And for the folks here in the room, you can simply just raise your hand and we'll pass around the microphone. And for those joining us on Zoom, you can hit the raise your hand icon located down below, or put your questions and comments inside of the chat, as well as those on Facebook Live, and I can bring those into the room. And I always love to mention that those chats are anonymous, so we can have a safe container for spiritual growth. But Richard, one thing I want to just mention here real quick is get a zoom in on this man's socks. Armando, sock check time. If you guys can't see it in the back, he's got some American socks. And I was told, Armando, you had a story with those socks. Is that right?
Being in D.C. all week.
Yeah, being in D.C., what was going on?
So, good morning, Dr. Tracy.
Hey.
So, I'm going to share a story, and I think it'll bring in both prayer and treatment. So, as I was prepping for my trip to Washington, I did my treatments, nothing specific, just that I would have the best experience, that I would go in confident and whatnot, leading Texas. And I also did prayers, and I reached out to my spiritual warriors. And so it's a combination of both, not knowing what to expect, first time being a Texas lead delegate. And so I'm there, and Tuesday morning, Siri took over my phone, and I could not unlock my phone. And I was frustrated. Did everything I could. I Googled, couldn't get anything done. Met with my team, and my intern says, let me play with it. She couldn't get it done. Says, well, let's go. We got to get in. Session started. We come out, and she says, why don't we go to the Apple store? Let's skip the next session because you're going to be speaking this afternoon, and I want you to be stress-free. I said, okay. And now I'm thinking, well, you have to have an appointment. So I'm starting to put limitations on my frustration, saying, well, you have to have an appointment, and we don't know, blah, 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 blah. And then I caught myself within 30 seconds. Yes. And I said, no, let's do it. So we get to the Apple store, walk in, a couple of customers. First thing they said is, do you have an appointment? I said, no, I do not. And here's the situation. So my intern's talking to them and doing all this stuff. And they fixed it, like within 5 minutes. And he says, so tell me about why you're here, what's going on. So I told him about the conference, and I told him about my nonprofit. He says, are you partnered with Apple? And I said, no. And not yet. And he says, we're working with nonprofits, and we'd love to be able to see how we can partner together. So I walk out with my phone fixed, with potential partner with Apple. Then I get back to the conference. Last year there was no vendors. Home Depot was there with their construction online training, which is right in alignment with my model. And so my intern says on the way back, she says, Armando, I hear you share about your manifestations, about your TSRWs, and I see how you do your work, but I get the privilege and the honor to witness it in person with you. And that is pretty awesome how magical it happened. And I said, actually, Caitlin, it's not really magic. I said, before I left, I treated and I prayed with my spiritual warriors. And that is a little bit of the prayer and the treatment that came through for me, and recognizing, she saw it as magical and like mysterious and how does this happen? And she's in awe. And I had to remind myself also, and remind her, that this is knowing, believing, trusting, affirming, and for me, most of all, staying disciplined. Thank you.
Okay, so right. This is not an applause moment. This is and even if you're at home, get on your feet. Like, this is not even praising Armand. Thank you for telling the story so we can all be like, that's how it works. That's who I want to be. That's how I'm got. Thank you, Brian. I mean, one person in the room gets on their feet. They can't see you online. Oh, well, now they can. I forgot.
I was going to say, you forgot we got cameras in the room.
I forgot Richard Williamson does not miss anything. Armando, thank you for the sharing Because there's so many things, oh my goodness. Okay, I'm gonna try not to go for the remaining 30 minutes on this. So the piece, I'll start where you ended, the discipline of knowing what you're doing and using it, right? The integration of both spiritual mind treatment and other forms of prayer. Like, we can do a benediction, or we can do, some kind of evocation or invocation. We can do a one-line prayer, right? A lot of times when we are saying affirmations, we are using them as a prayer without all of the other steps of treatment. So a prayer in that sense of claiming and affirming good is all of that we use. And we don't always have to do it on our own alone. So this is I love that Caitlin used the word, the miracle or the magic that we know is practice. It is knowing what to do, how to use the spiritual tools, expecting, a lot of times we'll say with joyful expectancy. And the most important part, we can be doing all of those things, but at the beginning of your example, Armando, you referred to, after you did your work, and then your phone's not working, the first place the human brain and emotion goes to is to agree with the limitation and then add more limitation to it. Oh, my phone's not working. Oh, Apple, yeah, no, can't go there because, you need an appointment. I don't have an appointment. Well, I don't know, my phone's not working. I guess it's just not going to work. I guess I'll just have to figure out something else for the rest. I. And to be able to catch ourselves in 30 seconds or 3 days when it maybe before it took 3 weeks, right? To be able to do that, that's when you know the discipline or the practice has become a new neural pathway in your brain that is guiding you to stop and make a different choice. And all treatment is choosing, consciously choosing and describing what that will look like. So thanks for getting us started. We have one more in the room and then we'll go online.
Sounds great.
Be sure to say your name.
My name is Ross. I was going to just, never mind. Okay, this is hopelessly confusing, to me
good.
anyway. Spiritual mind treatment, I get, is remarkably powerful. And it has rules to it and has a structure to it. And then when we look at traditional prayer, it says, pray to somebody or something. Well, no. Because even though I didn't believe that, you took it away from all of us a minute ago. Because it isn't a God that you pray to hoping that they'll do something for you. So what I don't get is, what is it? Now you say, now prayer is important, but I have no definition, I have no structure, I have no purpose that spiritual mind treatment doesn't cover. So what is your profound answer?
Let's see if Ernest Holmes has a definition for prayer. Ernest Holmes in the glossary on page 621 defined, which is a glossary of all kinds of words that are used in the Science of Mind textbook. Under prayer, the definition is, quote, refer to the chapter on prayer. You got to read the whole chapter 9 to be able to define prayer. That I don't think Ernest Holmes does that more than 5 or 6 times in all the pages of definitions. Oh my goodness. He often will refer you to a different definition, like for a word that could be used as a synonym. But I can't think of any other case where he actually says, go read the chapter. Like, don't come to the glossary looking for an easy answer. Go read the chapter. So, I love this.
That's really helpful.
It's not a long chapter. It's only, I don't know, it's only 5 pages long.
I think that's actually a plug so that you guys come back each Sunday for the next 7 months, because 5 pages will take us 7 months.
Ask that question just on the stage, 150 at the very top.
Right, and we got 4.
Clear your calendars out now.
It goes right down and say, the kingdom of God is within you.
Well, yeah, Jacqueline, hold on, repeat, because we can hear you, but they can't hear you online if you don't have the microphone.
I'm sorry. I got excited about his question. So it says that on page 150 at the very top, that's where we kind of closed out. God is a universal presence. It is divine and impartial, right? Forever pouring himself into his creation. And we are a part of creation, regardless to whatever pronoun you use for that. But then you go down to answer your question. The kingdom of God is within you. So it throws it right back on you to answer that question. And that is a good one. And there's that borderline between delusion and illusion.
Oh, no, we're going to hear that again. Okay, so let me comment about that, and then we're going to go to the people who are online. So, Ross, seriously, even though that gave me a great laugh, seriously, it's a really good question. So you said, in general, what we think of when we hear the word prayer is we're praying to someone or something outside of ourselves. The what?
That grants wishes.
Oh, that grants wishes to us, especially if we've been really good, or if we if we do the prayer really well. And so science of mind, one of the things that is really not completely different from the first part of that concept is what Jacqueline found on the next page. But it is, we are praying to a God that is universal. The difference in science of mind is that we understand that the God within, right? The God within, one of our basic principles in the Declaration of Principles is the innermost God and the quote-unquote highest God are the same God. And so that presence that is universal mind, that has access to know everything to do, what to do, when to do, how to do it, and why, we teach as an inner knowing and an inner presence. So when I am doing a spiritual mind treatment, or if I am doing a prayer and I use the framework of God delivers this, or God is the example of that, I am very clear as someone who has studied science of mind that it's not just an external presence that lives in the sky that promises me things, that it is an integrated spiritual law, not yet, and that I am not praying for something to be given to me. I am doing a prayer that affirms that the spiritual law must deliver that which I intend or claim. So I am in treatment when I am describing the outcome or what answered prayer will look and feel like. I am describing what I know the universe or God, my intention must be responded to by law. not by capriciousness, not by whether they like me or not by whether I said my prayers the exact right way and used the exact right words for 70 times a day, times 7, but that I am using the law that always says yes and responds to my desires, intentions, and claims. And so when I know that, it's not confusing, because I know I'm not praying to some amorphous, or even some people think physical source that is out there somewhere. Very quickly, and then we're going to go online.
I'll be very quick. So radical responsibility for everything that happens in my life is what is the premise of this. And so prayer has to do with deep connection to that responsibility. And finding my job is to find every resource possible to make happen what I want to happen in this life. Did I get it?
You're really close.
Finish it for me.
The only thing I want you to add to that, I want you to tweaking 2 pieces. Radical responsibility for everything that happens in my life, radical responsibility for how I respond to everything that happens.
True.
Okay, because I'm not responsible for everything that happens, but I am responsible for how I respond. And then on the other end of that at the last sentence was something like, I make everything happen. And the piece that is there is I co-create with God. I co-create with the universe, because I can't make every single thing happen. Armando's example, right? He put himself in a position, but he didn't make his phone not work. He didn't make the Apple staff person, the Apple genius, say, what kind of work do you do? Oh, what? We partner with people like that. Oh, he didn't make that happen, but it was in alignment with what he claimed and intended, that there will be good, right? This will be a benefit. And so the universe is actually moving the puzzle pieces around. He just showed up.
There's more to this story, and we'll get into it another time.
And we're going to go to online, please.
Yeah, absolutely. I see Marjorie, you got your hand up. Marjorie, do you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and join the conversation?
Yes, hello.
Good.
Okay.
Good morning, Marjorie.
Good morning. Yes, I'm really wanting to kind of express a little bit of not doubt, but just a question about the difference between prayer and spiritual mind treatment, and how that works out within New Thought or in CSL. Because Ernest Holmes teaches us that there is a power greater than ourselves, and we can use it. And so when he refers to that power that is greater than ourselves, that to me is speaking in terms of panentheism, that not only is God within everything, but God is also outside and above everything, or below everything, or so that it is both. It's the both and. And what I've noticed in my experience is that sometimes when we use spiritual mind treatment within our movement, and we choose to do another form of prayer, that somehow that is, at least this is the way I've experienced it. I've been told, oh, we don't do that here. Oh, we don't do that here. So when I speak a prayer using the second person, speaking to that power that is greater than myself, especially when I say it to the you, the thou, that is speaking these words right now, to the you that is me, but if I phrase it within that second person, then it's not allowed, it's not acceptable. It's like, oh, we don't do that here. So from my perspective, what I've experienced is that somehow this notion of spiritual mind treatment has become somewhat fundamentalized and has become a way to, I don't know, judge or exclude or go against what we're saying that we're about. Can you speak to that, please?
Of course I can speak to it. One of the reasons I love Marjorie's questions and comments is because we can do science of mind at the shallow surface entry level, and Marjorie will always make us move up to the PhD level. And I love that because it's like that and everything in between. And Marjorie, I want to validate that in some of our Science of Mind events and centers, you were very much likely to hear that. Here at CSLDallas, you will only hear that when we are saying we're doing a spiritual mind treat, or someone says they are doing a spiritual mind treatment, and then moving it from, and moving into the second person, because then it would not be a treatment, because the treatment process and system is very specific on purpose. But if we move out of treatment and say we're doing a prayer of a different kind, and we are consciously doing that and knowing that we are doing that, then there's more leeway for some differences. So often what will happen is if people are not clear that you are understanding and intentionally stepping out of treatment, where the quote-unquote God or universal spirit that you are framing the treatment within is the innermost connection to the outermost, then people will judge and people will criticize. And that's a fine line. Treatment in the second person where it is you, and I love, Marjorie, that you used the thou, right? The thou presence of the divine. There are many different, just like we talk about the Trinity or we talk about the triune nature of God, that there is a nature of God that is the thou, but there's still not separation when we do that, because we say it in everything that we do, right? There is one God, one presence in the universe that has created everything from itself. So in that regard, there is no separation. There's not an external that has nothing to do with me, God, that grants me. It's a part of me. So when you go to the second person and you are in thou consciousness, the sacred nature of that which has created everything, it can work in a prayer. And it's a yes and. Yes, and if someone thinks that you think you're doing a treatment, they are probably going to say that's not how we do treatment. So there's that is often going on, I think, in that situation. But when we know that we're just doing a different form of prayer and we are framing it in that way because we've learned that style, then that's probably going to come across, or we can make sure that people are aware of that. Finally, the one thing that's in my mind that's like, but you have to say that too, Tracy, is if the language, even with thou, if the language is begging and beseeching language instead of affirming or adoring works, but not begging and beseeching. If the language in engaging with thou, how great thou art, is begging and beseeching for a change, then that will probably always be judged in the context of science of mind and most new thought disciplines. But some of you know I have a sister who's very well known in the Church of God in Christ, Pentecostal practice or spiritual belief system. And I have another sister who is ordained in 2 Christian denominations and teaches at a seminary. And when I am talking with them or when I am hearing either one of them or their colleagues pray, and it is in the context of begging and beseeching and reminding whoever is listening to the prayer that you will always be a sinner and then Jesus died for your sins, I don't get flustered or bothered. I just translate it into the belief system that I have, and I have no need to criticize them for a belief system that works for them to provide guidance and deliver a beautiful, healthy, in mind and body life. So the one thing we don't do is we don't assume that there is only one way to have a spiritually grounded experience. We teach that all paths lead to God. And that also allows us to allow some leeway for people who are even primarily guided by science of mind, but are Jewish or practice Buddhism or do some other practice. Ernest Holmes taught these principles will help you be a better whatever you define yourself to be. It is not the only path. Marjorie, thank you for your question.
Yeah, want to just poll anybody here in the room? Oh, you want to go ahead, Carmen? Okay, we'll go to Carmen with the next question.
So my name is Carmen, and I know I brought up in the past how me and my son didn't have a really good relationship, and how it was growing, and it's getting better and better. And recently, I had a flat tire, and I called on him. He came after work to fix it, and he said, "Mom, whenever you need me, I want you to call me." And so that touched me when he said that. And for Mother's Day, he wants to cook. He's cooking for me. He's doing a fish fry because I wanted to. And he said, "What do you want for Mother's Day?" So just putting it out there, what I want, and not trying to insert or try to manipulate or trying to control an outcome, just letting it go and trusting the process. And now he's coming to me. He's wanting me. And the only thing is now when I did ask, when I asked what I wanted, I didn't really ask about his girlfriend. And so now I'm working on that now to create a whole nother story with her. Instead, I wanted one with him, and it's turning out the way that I asked for it, and I didn't include her in that. So I need to include her in that and change that story, the old story, and create a new one. And so, but I wanted to say how it's growing. We're getting closer and closer. So I wanted to say that.
Woohoo! Yes, 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 yes. And as Armando already told Caitlin, it's not magic. It's not magic. We can predict. And Carmen, thank you for what you said. We cannot predict exactly what it will look like. Right. We cannot predict the 10 steps that are going to happen to get there. What we can predict and feel confident about is how we will feel and what it will be like when that prayer, in quotes, is answered. So if you are familiar with spiritual mind treatment and you get hung up in step 3, which is the realization step, which is where you actually describe what it looks like and feels like for this intention to manifest in a physical form or in your life, that's why we emphasize so much I gotta have emotion. Like, where's the fire? What is it that it's gonna be happening? Who's gonna be with you? What are you gonna be doing? And even then, it's like, what are you gonna be doing? Like, you imagine, I'm going to be enjoying doing something fun with my son. It's not like, we're going to go to Six Flags on July 14th, 2026, and everything is going to be all fine, right? We're not controlling it like that, but it's that expansive. I will enjoy time with my son. My son calls and checks on me on a regular basis, and that makes me feel so wanted or valued, right? They're what is it going to know? And then you can recognize it when it happens. Right? You can recognize the symptoms. You can recognize the demonstrations the same way that you started out recognizing the symptoms of the pain. Right? You go from recognizing the symptoms of the pain or the dis-ease or the discomfort to recognizing the manifestation, the demonstration of the manifestation. Oh, see, now you all have got me started on prayer. I love prayer. I love the way that we pray in Science of Mind and that we use this mental treatment, and it begins to pull together everything we talk about related to what is God, how does God work, what is spirit, how does spirit work, what is it doing? What's the relationship between the Creator and humanity? And how do we use our thoughts in order to create, sustain, evolve our lives? And that's why we do this every Sunday morning, just a little piece, and then talk about it. So I think we're about rounding out our time together this morning, but I always want to turn to Ryan for an update on any big things coming up at CSL Dallas.
Absolutely, and thank you for leading the class today. Let's give it up for Tracy. She's not here with us next week. Dr. Peacher will be, but we always love and appreciate when you're here with us. And today is a special Mother's Day, so happy Mother's Day to all that are celebrating here in the room and online everywhere all over the globe. We are going to have the fantastic Cynthia James in the house. Can I get a round of applause for Cynthia James? If you guys don't know, she's well, goodness gracious, how do you describe Cynthia? Well, she is a singing, I'm at a loss for words. So powerhouse, right? You guys got that out of it as well, too. She is going to be here talking about the magic that lies within. And later on today, starting at 1 p.m. Central Time, she'll also be doing a workshop here with us, taking us a deeper dive into the creative process and how we can unleash that for ourselves. So I invite you to join us for that. You can join us for the celebration featuring her talk today, starting here at 10:30 on Facebook and on YouTube. And then head on over to our website, CSLDallas.org, click on the workshops and events tab, and you will be able to sign up for a workshop that's happening later today. Did you want to say anything about Cynthia? I know you guys have been around each other for a couple of seasons.
Well, I think Cindy using the word powerhouse is absolutely on target in all ways, as a spiritually guided coach, as a women's empowerment teacher, as a leader of travels and tours all over the globe, not just in the U.S., and so much more. Just a delightful ordained minister who takes her ministry into different places than just the pulpit on Sunday mornings. So absolutely, please join us today for Sunday service, or if you're in person or hybrid online for the workshop this afternoon, you will not be sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. I know the crazy thing is she told me earlier this morning she was at like a conference right before here, and then she was doing another event somewhere across in the United States. She is out and about, so it's going to be a great day. Another special guest that we're going to be having coming up here in June is Esther Nicholson, who's going to be here with us on June 15th. She is a healing recovery expert, and she will be coming to talk to us a little bit about her work with soul recovery.
Yes.
So it's going to be an exciting time. Please head over to our website, learn more about her, get signed up for the workshop, and also join our classes. We have them both available online and in person. So make sure to head over to the website for more. Oh, and we do have a special May 18th community gathering. So make sure you're here next week. We have some really exciting information on the unfolding of CSLDallas 3.0. So Dr. Petra will be back with us having a really great Sunday celebration, talking more about that. And then afterwards, we'll have a community event that will be both online and in person. So we invite you to join for that.
In other words, be with us at CSL Dallas the rest of the day today, and don't miss any future week because it only gets better. So have a great week, everybody. See you next week.